Love and work. Work and love, that's all there is. Sigmund Freud. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. The goal of all life is death. The ego is not master in its own house. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility, and most people are frightened of responsibility. Sigmund Freud. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. Sigmund Freud. If youth knew, if age could. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. He that has eyes to see and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips, betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Sigmund Freud. The great question that has never been answered, and which I have not yet been able to answer, despite my 30 years of research into the feminine soul, is what does a woman want? Sigmund Freud. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Sigmund Freud. The conscious mind may be compared to a fountain playing in the sun and falling back into the great subterranean pool of subconscious from which it rises. Flowers are restful to look at. They have neither emotions nor conflicts. A civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. Sigmund Freud. I have found little that is good about human beings on the whole. In my experience most of them are trash, no matter whether they publicly subscribe to this or that ethical doctrine or to none at all. That is something that you cannot say aloud, or perhaps even think. Sigmund Freud. The mind is like an iceberg, it floats with 1/7 of its bulk above water. Civilization began the first time an angry person cast a word instead of a rock. If a man has been his mother's undisputed darling he retains throughout life the triumphant feeling, the confidence in success, which not seldom brings actual success along with it. Sigmund Freud. One is very crazy when in love. Everywhere I go I find that a poet has been there before me. The voice of the intellect is a soft one, but it does not rest until it has gained a hearing. Sigmund Freud. The first human who hurled an insult instead of a stone was the founder of civilization. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. What a distressing contrast there is between the radiant intelligence of the child and the feeble mentality of the average adult. Every normal person, in fact, is only normal on the average. His ego approximates to that of the psychotic in some part or other and to a greater or lesser extent. Sigmund Freud. Dreams are often most profound when they seem the most crazy. Just as no one can be forced into belief, so no one can be forced into unbelief. Sigmund Freud. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. Sigmund Freud. Men are more moral than they think and far more immoral than they can imagine. What we call happiness in the strictest sense comes from the preferably sudden satisfaction of needs which have been dammed up to a high degree. Sigmund Freud. The doctor should be opaque to his patients and like a mirror should show them nothing but what is shown to him. Sigmund Freud. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. If you can't do it, give up. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. America is a mistake, a giant mistake. Neurotics complain of their illness, but they make the most of it, and when it comes to talking it away from them they will defend it like a lioness her young. Sigmund Freud. Man has as it were become a kind of prosthetic god. When he puts on all his auxiliary organs, he is truly magnificent, but those organs have not grown on him and they still give him much trouble at times. Sigmund Freud. Children are completely egoistic, they feel their needs intensely and strive ruthlessly to satisfy them. Where it was, their ego shall be. The psychoanalysis of neurotics has taught us to recognize the intimate connection between wetting the bed and the character trait of ambition. Sigmund Freud. Anatomy is destiny. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea, they become powerless when they oppose it. A man who has been the indisputable favorite of his mother keeps for life the feeling of a conqueror. Analogies, it is true, decide nothing, but they can make one feel more at home. Just as a cautious businessman avoids investing all his capital in one concern, so wisdom would probably admonish us also not to anticipate all our happiness from one quarter alone. Sigmund Freud. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. The goal towards which the pleasure principle impels us of becoming happy is not attainable, yet we may not, nay, cannot give up the efforts to come nearer to realization of it by some means or other. Sigmund Freud. What progress we are making. In the Middle Ages they would have burned me. Now they are content with burning my books. Civilized society is perpetually menaced with disintegration through this primary hostility of men towards one another. The tendency to aggression is an innate independent instinctual disposition in man. It constitutes the powerful obstacle to culture. America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but I am afraid it is not going to be a success. Illusions commend themselves to us because they save us pain and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. We must therefore accept it without complaint when they sometimes collide with a bit of reality against which they are dashed to pieces. Sigmund Freud. The first requisite of civilization is that of justice. Sigmund Freud.